Hello and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Kimberley Hoeppner, and today is September 24th, 2019. In just a moment, we're going to be on with your public aviation and marine forecast. Remember, you can always get our information by dialing 1-800-472-0391 or just going to our website by typing in weather.gov/Alaska and just clicking on the map that's available. Now let's go on to the important topics of the day. I'm just going to step off your screen here a little bit so you can read them along with me. We're expecting light snow across the west coast, and the next storm system is also going to be moving to the west coast. That storm is going to be coming through the second one Thursday through Friday of this week. Impact concerns are along Norton Sound and along the lower Yukon. So watch out for wave heights and high surf for the end of the week. Now, we will see increased shower activity tonight through Thursday, and we're going to start the show off with showing you this graphic that we were putting out of the National Weather Service over at Anchorage. Now, this is a graphical image of the storm system that's going to be tracking from tonight through Wednesday. As you can see, there's some lighter blue colors in there. So yes, we're expecting some freshening of the snow on the mountain tops along with some rain shower activity, including showers continuing for the Panhandle. Now let's go to the satellite images so we can look at the systems bringing the weather currently to the area. This afternoon we have low pressure which is developing here in the northern areas of the Bering. Now this system is going to be the system that brings most of the rain and snow for the next 2 days. However, we do have a weak low pressure trough that's over the southern tier of the state, and this is just bringing a boundary enough for shower activity to develop along the Panhandle and eastern Gulf there. Now further to the west, let's look out towards the Bering. We do have this afternoon a frontal system that's pushing in from the North Pacific. This is going to be the system that brings the higher surf across the Norton Sound or Yukon as we head into the end of the week. So let's just address that storm system first. It is a mature system, and it's got an occluded front that's currently pushing in. The frontal boundary is just pushing into Shimia this afternoon. Now here's the weak boundary across the southeast. That's primarily just brings some weak showers to the area, some northerly flow or southerly flow across the inner waters, and some more westerly flow across the Gulf. Now, for the west coast locations, we're seeing shower activity with low pressure. One was diminishing. A front moved in last night is now weakening and diminishing, but this next low pressure system is in the developmental state, and it's got a significantly cold air mass associated with it. Now, we did see some snow reports across the northern interior, but primarily rain showers are across the northwest and west coast locations today. Now, as we head into tonight, here's the low pressure system making its landfall at 999 millibars. So weak but organizing system, which will help initiate those rain showers across most of the lower elevations with snow for the higher elevations. Now the snow shower activity across the central and central interior and also south central will mainly be late tonight and just along the mountains. There is a possibility for light snow and rain showers all along the west coast. Now let's look to the west. This other storm system is going to be bringing some very gusty winds between 40 to 60 miles per hour out of the south along the frontal boundary as it pushes through, and that will continue on an easterly track to the central Bering locations for your Wednesday. So pretty good rainfall with subtropical moisture streaming up with that front. Now along the interior, expect this low pressure system on this easterly track through Wednesday, bringing shower activity across most of the state, expecting, like I said, some snow, and for the Nulato Hills area and western interior, they could see some snow up to 2 inches in the higher elevations, mainly above 1,500 feet. So Wednesday's going to be a showery day for most of the area, a little bit of a westerly flow, possible some gusts across the Prince William Sound once that low pushes off late Wednesday into Thursday morning. So some offshore flow may produce some gusts for channeled terrain. Across the north and west coast, just some light shower activity, but winds will be relatively light. Now on Thursday, that's your best day to see some drier weather. However, we will see some morning low clouds, especially along the northern tier of the state, and the rain will be ongoing with a boundary staying in place across the southeast. Now for the west coast, here's this next system that's going to be approaching on Thursday. Should be pushing into the YK Delta by Thursday afternoon, and then pushing some light rain into Norton Sound. It's not until late day Thursday where those winds really make it up and that push into Norton Sound. Now, winds behind this system will become more west to southwesterly and a little bit more showery in nature. However, this is going to be a gusty day for most of the Bering locations with that front coming across, especially across the Alaska Peninsula. It'll be on the gustier side, but the precipitation should only make it to just about eastern areas of Dutch Harbor. And now across the Gulf, expect a quieter day overall. The wind should be on the lighter side for your Thursday all across the Gulf. So just primary concerns are just going to be the lighter precip and a little bit stronger wind there across the eastern waters. Now let's take a look at your temperatures. Now heading into tonight, we will see temperatures slightly cooler across the interior once again, but temperatures have already been dropping down into the 20-degree range for most of the central interior locations. Along the Gulf Coast, expect temperatures in the low to mid 40s, and then across the west coast, you're going to see the most variation from mid 30s to lower 40s as you head into the Bristol Bay area. For the Alaska Peninsula, expect temperatures tonight to be in the mid 40s as well as the rest of the Bering locations. For Wednesday afternoon, expect temperatures to be warmest across the southeast and the southwest with temperatures into the middle 50s. And across the interior locations, temperatures will steady about 40 to 50 degrees as you get towards the Gulf Coast locations. To the north, after a cold start to the morning, temperatures will warm to around 40 degrees with slightly cooler temperatures across the northeast, the Brooks Range there, to freezing to the mid-30 range. For your Thursday morning, starting off, another day slightly cooler with those cooler temperatures extending all across the northern tier of the state. In general, this is going to be the coldest day of the week for Thursday, and temperatures across the west and coast and towards the west will be in the low to mid 40s, as well as for the southeast, temperatures will drop there into the 40 degree to 45 degree range. So for your Thursday afternoon, with weather tapering off, it'll be very slow to warm during the day for most of the state. So the warmest temperatures are going to be in the southeast and then across the southwest, with temperatures reaching into the 40s to near 50 degrees across the rest of the state. Along the north coast, temperatures may be slightly warmer on Thursday than on Wednesday. For the Bering locations, this is a warm front that's passing across the area, so temperatures will also get into the mid 50 degree range across the Alaska Peninsula, maybe slightly cooler across the western waters. Now, I just wanted to mention here at the National Weather Service, we know that you're using these forecasts for your planning, whether it be hunting or getting ready for winter. And we're always working hard at all of the offices across the Alaska locations so you can better plan your activities to prepare for winter. In just a moment, we'll talk about your aviation weather.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Now on to your flying weather maps. Let's take a look at the central areas of the state. We're going to see widespread areas of MVFR conditions, and as you head towards the southern tier along the Alaska Range and south towards the coast, expect widespread IFR conditions, as well as along the inner channels for the southeast panhandle locations with MVFR across most of the southeast and the eastern areas and northern areas of the Gulf. Look for the same conditions across much of the southwest and west coastal locations, and then we'll just see MVFR conditions along the north coast. For the Bering, we're going to see the front moving in from the west, so we'll have widespread IFR and MVFR conditions to the west, a little break of VFR for your Wednesday morning across the central and eastern Aleutians. However, we'll see across the eastern areas of the Bering into the Bristol Bay locations across the western Alaska Range, IFR and MVFR conditions. As we head into the afternoon, expect IFR for the central or western interior locations along the Alaska Range is going to also be problematic, and along the coast, IFR conditions hanging on. So for conditions tomorrow, not too much changes. However, we will see ceilings coming down through the afternoon for some of the state. Out to the west, we do have a widespread area of IFR conditions that'll be shifting further east towards the Pribilof Islands during the afternoon. And then for the southeast, fairly persistent conditions with IFR, MVFR remaining. For your Thursday, we'll see another area of MVFR and IFR across the southern tier of the state. Little breaks in just south of the Brooks Range there, and MVFR conditions expected along the north coast. Concerns continue across the southeast and also for much of the Bering. We'll see that break for VFR across the Alaska Peninsula for Thursday morning. However, this front is going to be approaching, so looks like this area will also stay in the VFR for the afternoon, depending on the speed of this front, which I think the models are handling fairly good. So mainly over the central and northern waters for the concern Thursday afternoon. Now let's look at your passes in more depth. We have Anaktuvik starting off at MVFR, improving to VFR. And Adigan Pass is expected to stay MVFR all day. Now Lake Clark and Merrill Pass will be IFR and MVFR. Rainy, expect IFR conditions for Wednesday, and windy will stay MVFR all day. Isabel will go IFR to MVFR later in the afternoon, and Mentasta IFR. Tanita goes IFR to MVFR, with Portage going to MVFR to VFR. And Chilkoot and White Pass will go IFR to MVFR in the afternoon. Looking at your freezing levels to start the day, pretty much along the west coast, draped down towards the Alaska Range for your surface freezing levels. And then we have a climb from 2,000 to 4,000 feet across the southern tier of the state, slowly climbing to 6,000 well south of the Gulf there. So slightly cooler air mass across the area, with the rises most noticeable across the Bering 2,000 to 10,000 feet as you get to the western Aleutian chain there. Let's take a look at your icing for tomorrow. We have icing concerns above 6,000 feet for the system out towards the west, and across the interior locations, we'll see some isolated icing in those locations, mainly above 4,000 feet for the state. Now let's take a look at the jet stream. The pattern is definitely moving and amplified. We do have some split flow locations, and that kind of is indicated by this ridging here across the Bering with this deep low to the south. And then the jet stream is at 150 knots where these two jets merge together. We also have another jet streak out to the west of the Aleutians there at 140 knots. Looking at your 9,000-foot pattern, we'll have this low pressure, very broad, encompassing most of the Bering between 30 to 50 knots out of the south to southwest flow, with lighter flow across much of the interior, strongest winds across the southwest and into the western Gulf up to 50 knots there, and primarily a westerly flow across the Gulf, Looking at your Wednesday for 3,000-foot winds, we're looking between 30 to 35 knots across the Gulf, lighter winds inland, and stronger winds out to the west. As noted, the strongest winds here below 5,000 feet for the southwest locations, Western Gulf and Western Bering.
Just as the sun is part of weather on Earth, it also affects weather in space. The sun creates solar wind by steadily releasing a flow of plasma particles in all directions around it. Sometimes the sun gives off a flash of light and X-rays. This is known as a solar flare. When massive bursts of particles explode into space, we call it a coronal mass ejection, or CME. When a CME is directed toward Earth, it hits the magnetosphere, the magnetic field around our planet that protects us. If the storm is large, we may even get to enjoy a light display in the sky called the auroras. In space, satellites may be damaged, and astronauts should take cover. On Earth, people do not feel any physical effects. We may lose electricity in some areas, polar flights may be rerouted, and satellite services may be disrupted. While these situations aren't ideal, they are rare and fixable. This is why we will continue to study the sun and its interactions with Earth and the solar system.
Longing for more space, open skies, and exotic travel? Then look up, about 30 to 600 miles straight up, at the ionosphere, Earth's interface to space. Nestled far above the clouds but below outer space, this little understood destination invites you to explore its many features. Experience both the weather from Earth and the weather from space. Marvel at the ballet of radio waves and navigation signals, like GPS, leaping through this particle paradise. Sit back, relax, and take in the aurora, some satellites, and the International Space Station as they sail by. And you'll want your camera handy for one of the region's signature features, bright and colorful air glow. This daily show is made possible by the ionosphere's own swarming charged particles, because that's what the ionosphere is. It's all charged particles. During the day, enjoy the sea of particles, freshly energized by the sun. As the sun sets, this particle party relaxes and the air glow thins. Our quieter nightlife lets you gaze into clearer skies. The ionosphere is in constant motion, an amazing effect of space weather. Don't miss when solar storms rain down. The storm separates the particles even more, making this colorful region delightfully more dense in some places and stunningly sparse in others. And don't forget about storms from Earth below. Your weather from back home also stirs up this one-of-a-kind destination. Experience the unique beauty of every season, as changes in Earth's atmosphere, daily and annually, can create pressure waves, changing the ionosphere's shape and density. Venture to the equator, where our particles are packed in lush and thick. Cruise along a magnetic field line and see how the ionosphere's charged material also interacts with Earth's own magnetic field. Don't miss the superhighway of particles zipping out to space and back down to the planet. This unpredictable parade of charged particles can help you unplug and unwind. This is because the crowd of particles can garble the radio and satellite communications from home. The ionosphere welcomes you to discover more about this little-known region. After all, once you've explored this interface to space, who knows how much farther you'll be able to go.
When a star, bigger and more massive than the Sun, runs out of fuel at the end of its life, its core collapses while the outer layers are blown off in a supernova explosion. What's left behind depends on the star's original mass. A star roughly 10 to 20 times our Sun leaves behind a neutron star. A more massive star becomes a black hole. Unlike black holes, neutron stars are directly observable, usually as pulsars, the lighthouses of the cosmos. Discovered 50 years ago, they are the densest observable objects in the universe. Neutron stars compress up to twice the Sun's mass into a city-sized sphere. Matter is packed so tightly that a teaspoon of neutron star interior would weigh more than 1 billion tons on Earth. Still, the nature of the ultra-dense matter in the cores of neutron stars is unknown. Because neutron stars pack so much mass into such a tiny volume, they produce gravity strong enough to bend the light they emit, distorting their appearance in a way that enables the mass and size of the star to be measured. Scientists cannot reproduce the extreme conditions in and around neutron stars on Earth. They must look into the galaxy to answer decades-old questions about extreme matter and gravity. NASA's Neutron Star Interior Composition Explorer mission, or NISA, will make X-ray observations of neutron stars from its perch on the International Space Station. It will give astronomers more insight into these mysterious objects, helping determine what is under their surface. A multi-purpose mission, NISA includes a technology demonstration called Sextant. It will analyze NISA's observations to validate the use of rapidly rotating neutron stars as navigation beacons for travel in deep space throughout the solar system and beyond.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
And now on to the marine segment of the show. We're just going to take a quick look at the ice edge. We're still looking at the ice far north, about 400 miles north of AKwx. So the ice edge is beginning to grow. So it's still going to be a while until it gets close to that coastal location. Now for the southeast, heading into Wednesday, we're expecting primarily a south to westerly flow across the area with small crafts up there across the northern channels and also along the offshore locations. We'll see seas on this day between 3 to 5 feet across the inner waters. The outer waters will range between 11 to 12 feet. For your Thursday, expect stronger winds across the offshores to continue, small crafts again out there. And then we'll see winds about 15 knots across the inner channels, varying in direction from southeast to the northwest direction as you head towards the south. Seas on this day will be 3 feet across those inner waters and 11 to 13 feet for your outer waters. Let's take a look at the areas for the north and western areas of the Gulf. Strong westerly flow out for those locations, expecting gale conditions for the western Gulf waters there. And then we'll see lighter wind speeds up across the northern inlet and the Prince William Sound at 10 to 15 knots out of the west and southwest directions. For your Thursday, we're still expecting gusty flow to continue. Might see some gusts out there towards Whittier on Wednesday with the offshore flow pattern that's setting up, and we'll see small crafts across the western Gulf and around the southern tip of the Kenai there. And expect seas on this day between 2 to 7 feet across those Cook Inlet locations and the higher seas across the Gulf between 9 to 12 feet. Now let's take a look at the Alaska Peninsula, looking at westerly flow, small craft mostly across the peninsula with seas between 9 to 12 feet across the Bering side and then between 6 to 8 feet there for the southern part of the Alaska Peninsula to Kodiak Island. Looking for small crafts still to continue just north of the Alaska Peninsula for Thursday. Change of wind direction behind the exiting system with lighter wind speeds. Seas will be between 3 to 10 feet with the higher sea heights out there in the Bering. For Wednesday across the Aleutian Range, let me step over to the left, we're going to see some strong winds for the central Aleutians and heading towards the eastern Aleutians. So small craft to gales criteria for you out there. And seas on this day will be ranging from 5 to 18 feet, higher seas out there towards the west. So pretty big range on those. And then we'll see another gale windy day for most of the area on Thursday. As the next strong system comes up, look for seas on this day between 10 to 20 feet, the higher seas out towards the west once again. And then on Wednesday for your west coast, a westerly flow, some small craft advisories out there, a little bit more southerly across the central areas of the Bering. And then we'll see winds a little bit more northwest towards Norton Sound on Wednesday. So 6 to 9 foot seas across the area. And then for your Thursday, stronger winds coming into the area. So gales out there between 30 to 40 knots for most of the area. A little bit lighter winds up towards Norton Sound at 25 knots. And seas on this day will range between 5 to 18 feet. And the winds, like I said, are going to be quite gusty with that frontal system coming through. So on Wednesday for the north and west coast, look for winds ranging between 10 to 20 knots, a little bit lighter across the northwest coast there, ranging from the east direction, becoming more north towards the Seward Peninsula. Seas on this day will range between 2 to 6 feet. The higher seas, of course, are along the Seward Peninsula there. For your Thursday forecast, expecting 15 to 20 knot winds, a little bit stronger winds towards the Seward Peninsula. So looking at 30 knots, and winds on this day will be primarily out of the south, but a little bit more westerly across the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. All right, let's recap the weather for tonight. You're looking at a weak low pushing inland with a stronger upper level wave coming through into Wednesday. Expect those precipitation chances to increase to the eastern areas of the state. Panhandle locations will stay showery while the next big storm system crosses the Bering into Thursday and bringing primarily a drier day for Thursday across much of the interior.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.